Welcome back to the laboratory, dear friends. Tonight, a murder mystery, and the victim is a sound. On the evening of May 19th, 1998, 45 million little boxes across America stopped. No warning, no error message, just silence, hanging from 45 million belts. Doctors missed their emergencies, gas pumps forgot how to take money, and the culprit was nowhere on this earth. It was 22,000 miles straight up, where a machine the size of a school bus had quietly lost its mind. I am the magnanimous Dr. Warthan, and this is the Broken Machine Society. Case file number 2, the Pager Blackout. If you enjoy tales of magnificent catastrophe, do tap that like button. Gently, it has been through enough. Now, to appreciate tonight's victim, you must remember a device your children never will: the pager, the beeper. You see, in 1998, the telephone still lived on a wall or a desk. It did not ride in your pocket. So if the world needed you, truly needed you, it beeped at your hip. Doctors wore them. Nurses, plumbers, reporters, anxious parents. 45 million Americans wore a little plastic box that meant you can always be found. That was the promise. And nearly the whole promise rested on one single machine. Because here is the question nobody asked: how does one beep 45 million hips? You do not call them one at a time, dear friends. Your message goes up once, 22,000 miles up, to a satellite named Galaxy 4. And Galaxy 4 shouts it back down at half a continent, to every paging tower from Boston to Burbank, all at the same instant. A town crier, standing 22,000 miles tall. And at that particular height, a satellite circles the Earth at exactly the speed the Earth itself turns. So it hangs, forever, above the same spot. They call it geostationary. I call it the most elegant parking trick in physics. Speaking of communications, I am told it is time for a brief word from tonight's sponsor. I have no sponsor. Any day now. Now! Where were we? Ah, yes. May 19th. Just past 6 in the evening Eastern Time. Inside Galaxy 4, buried deep in its electronics, sat its brain, a control processor whose one sacred duty was to keep the satellite pointed at America. And at that hour, without so much as a flicker of drama, that brain died. A small electrical short somewhere in its circuits, and the thinking simply stopped. But do not panic, dear friends, because Galaxy 4 carried a spare brain, a backup processor installed for precisely this moment. The satellite reached for its spare and found it dead as well. It had died quietly sometime earlier, days, weeks, perhaps months before, and nobody knew. Nobody had checked. The spare tire, dear friends, had been flat the entire trip. And so, with no brain at all, Galaxy 4 forgot its one sacred job: to point. It began to drift, its great antennas wandering slowly away from America, and the voice that fed a continent of beepers just trailed away into the dark. On the ground, this was silence with a body count attached. Doctors walked out of surgery and glanced at pagers that had nothing to say. Hospitals dusted off telephone chains and sent runners down hallways like it was 1955. Radio programs vanished off the air mid-sentence because the networks fed their stations through that same parking spot. And at the gas station, pay at the pump swallowed cards and returned nothing. In a single evening, America discovered just how much of its plumbing ran through one small machine hanging over the equator. Then came the great repointing. The satellite company pressed a spare bird, Galaxy 6, into service within days, which sounds tidy until you remember how a satellite dish works. A dish is a stubborn listener. It stares at one fixed point in the sky, and it hears nothing else. Galaxy 6 was not in the same parking spot. So across America, for days, technicians climbed onto rooftops and towers with wrenches and compasses and re-aimed the nation's dishes by hand, one at a time. Thousands of dishes. The pager network crawled back to life, one rooftop at a time. So, what killed the brains of Galaxy 4? Gather close, because the murder weapon in this case is one of my very favorites. Inside the failed processor, the circuits were plated with pure, gleaming tin. And pure tin, dear friends, does something that sounds like a fairy tale. It grows whiskers. Actual whiskers. Crystals of solid metal, thin as spider silk, creeping outward from the surface, a hair's width per year, for years. Silent. Invisible. Until one whisker grows just long enough to bridge two contacts that were never meant to touch. A spark, a short, a dead brain. The murder weapon, dear friends, was a metal beard. And the spare brain? Same design, same circuits, same pure tin, growing the same whiskers, in the same dark, all those years. Two identical brains, murdered by the same slow crystal, grown in the same garden. Regular members of the society will recognize our old enemy. In our last case file, 114 identical telephone switches shared a single typo, and half a nation went quiet. Tonight, two identical brains shared a single disease, and one satellite carried 9 of every 10 pages in America. Say it with me, dear friends. Redundancy is not diversity. When your backup is your twin, it shares your fate. What happened next? The engineers declared war on the whiskers. Pure tin was hunted out of spacecraft and hardened electronics, blacklisted like the assassin it is, and to this day, whisker hunters publish photographs of the little murderers like trophies. And the pager? Ah, the pager never truly recovered. The cellular telephone was already circling, and after that silent evening, America understood it could survive a day without the beep. The pager did not die on May 19th, but that was the evening it first heard its own silence. And here is tonight's lesson, so listen closely. The sky is not magic. The sky is infrastructure. Plumbing, hung 22,000 miles over your head, invisible right up until supper time on some ordinary Tuesday. The machines up there are honest, like all machines. They do exactly what they are told, until something small and quiet and patient tells them otherwise. Case closed. Next time, before the society, a man, a rented satellite dish, and a grudge over a price hike. 4.5 minutes that terrified every broadcaster in America. Stay curious. Point your antennas carefully, and do check on your spares. The society is adjourned.